this episode, we will cover nodes. Nodes are the core of the network. They build blocks on the chain following the rules. If you as a node are not building blocks, you are not a node. You are just losing your time and money. Economic incentives matters, and it forces nodes to keep honesty. In the Bitcoin white paper, you can read 16 times the word honest. 16 times. Nodes are professional companies, and as stated in the white paper, they enforce rules. They can't change the protocol, and if they are not honest, they are out. At scale, nodes will specialize to compete with other nodes. It's a balance between collaboration to support the network and competition to gain the next block. In this chapter, you can see an example of a professional node and how they are offering additional services to support the ecosystem.
Okay, so hello everyone, and we're happy to join this meetup today and to have the opportunity to present you TAAL, what we do, our products and services. So I'm Aurelian, head of product at TAAL, and also product manager for the token team. Today will be several speakers during this presentation. With me today, Oli, head of engineering at TAAL. Mattia, product manager for the What's on Chain team. What's on Chain is our Explorer tool. Mohamed, alias Mo, tech lead for the What's on Chain team as well. And then also Ernesto, product manager for the transaction services team. So the idea today is to introduce you to our blockchain as a service approach, which aims at, enabling the next internet and powering the adoption of Web3, or could say also Web 2.5, right? Bridging Web 2 and Web 3. So the agenda for today, we'll start by a quick introduction, presentation of TAAL, who we are. Then we'll do a high-level product and services overview before digging into our blockchain platform as a service approach, first on developer services, and then on infrastructure services. And there will be also time at the end of the presentation for some Q&A. After this presentation, there will be also a highlight by the What's on Chain team. They will be digging into What's on Chain, small demo, and Q&A as well. So let's start with who we are. So TAAL started as a miner years ago, and basically we are now the most prominent miner in the ecosystem. Then over time, the company developed a software activity to better support the development of BSV by actually supporting project owners, developers, giving them the ability to build on top of it. So this approach serves our vision, where BSV is the highly scalable blockchain, a blockchain capable of processing all forms of data and payment transactions. So the next internet, so to speak. We have about 60 employees at TAAL, including 20 engineers. Our HQ is in Zug, and we also have offices in Canada, in the Cayman Islands, and also some people working from the Philippines in the service management team. Globally, TAAL has a culture of remote, and many people work remotely from countries like France. That's me, for instance. Also Spain, the Netherlands, Croatia, and so on. So TAAL is part of a growing BSV ecosystem. And as you can see, let me just put the laser. As you can see, we're active on several boxes here at different levels, right? Infrastructure level, blockchain level, developer services to read or write on the blockchain, and other developer services at a higher level to be able to build use cases like tokens, smart contracts, and wallets. So basically, we are creating the tools necessary for the application builders to thrive. We are powering a developer community building on BSV, that's for sure. And many companies across different industries use at least one of our services. and the main one being what's on chain, right? It's today our top product. Overall, we ambition to serve the whole ecosystem, which is now composed of more than 1,500 developers, more than 200 applications, and more than 300 companies. Let's have an overview of our product and services at TAAL. So our approach is to have one-stop shop platform providing all the necessary tools to enable developers, product owners, entrepreneurs build on top of the BSV blockchain. It means enabling you guys to easily or seamlessly read the blockchain, write on the blockchain by building transactions, and also power concrete use cases on top of the blockchain. And that's with smart contracts, tokens, and as well the browser wallets. So to read the blockchain, we have what's on chain, the blockchain explorer and the API. So it's the most used explorer in the BSV ecosystem right now, and we have more than 90 million API requests per month currently. To write on the blockchain, we have the TAAL API, which is also called TAPI, TAPI. We have the TAAL client, and overall we inherit from the blockchain capability to process about 5K transactions per second at a small cost of 1 Satoshi per kilobyte currently. We will dig into all of the services a bit more later on in the presentation. Also, the ability to read or write on the blockchain with node-related capabilities, infrastructure as a service, if needed for some customers. And we also have we enable also developers and builders to build their use cases using the Token Studio and API, which enables the creation of tokens like STAS. It's still in public beta for now. We have also the Smart Contract Studio and API. It's based on Script. It's in private betas for now. And we also have the TAAL browser wallets. It's currently available. There is a V1, so it's a Chrome extension. And there is a V2 coming soon in less than 2 weeks. In the end, so remember that we want to build this platform, one-stop shop platform with all the tools to build on the BSV blockchain. And we want to provide enterprise-grade solutions, which are technically audited, compliant, and also with 24/7 support. So that's another view of our product and services, a bit more detailed, right? So first, as mentioned, we have our blockchain platform as a service here, composed of our developer services with Explorer services, what's on chain, transaction services, TAAL API clients, and token services, which also include smart contracts and wallets. We also have infrastructure as a service with 2 services, BSV Lite and Node as a service. Here you can see some solutions level here. Basically, it's just a bundle of those services, a way to present the information in our offering to answer, to match specific use cases. At the bottom level, infrastructure level, I would say pure infrastructure level, we have our TAAL nodes and our mining software, called also the orchestrator. This is basically what we need for our mining activity at TAAL. Then what's on chain as a separate infrastructure, independent nodes, and they're here. On the top level, so application level and all the applications available to the public, accessible to the public. We have the corporate website, taal.com, and we have our platform with our customer portal. Basically, from there you can see the details of our services, what we do, also access technical documentation. And once you create an account and you log in, you can also access the services. You can subscribe to plans and use our API keys and so on. Let's dig a bit more into our blockchain platform as a service approach with developer services. So as discussed, we are here zooming in here, and we're starting with token, smart contracts, and wallet services. So first, the token studio and API, which is in public beta, right? So the problems we solve or we are trying to solve, the first one is it's hard to know what are all the available token protocols out there in the BSV ecosystem, right? There is the stars protocol, one-shot ordinals, BSV20, ELAS, tokenized, run, and etc., etc. And it's also hard to know which token protocol is best suited for a business need, right? When you're an application builder and you have all these protocols out there, which is the best one for what I'm trying to do, right? So we want to solve those problems by building this token studio and also API. The API is more for developers directly, and the token studio, so with the front end, is for builders, entrepreneurs. Developers can also use it, but in general, they prefer using API directly. And so we give the possibility to create fungible and non-fungible tokens, depending on the protocol, to deploy and manage token contracts. So the user can choose a protocol in the studio. Now we have stas. Soon we will have one-shot ordinals, and then we will be adding, indexing other token protocols. The global idea here is that we are token agnostic, right? We are just targeting every protocol out there in the BSV ecosystem. And our ultimate goal is to bring intelligence into the product and be able to give advice to our users and customers in which protocol to choose. So we will be working on the token wizard, which aims at just letting the user describe a business need, and then we can suggest the best protocol to achieve the need. So here you can see some snapshots of the token studio. That's the front end. So where you start by choosing a type. For now, it's the entry point, fungible, non-fungible tokens. You can choose your protocol, and then you can create your token and deploy it, sign with the wallet, and that's it. We also have the Smart Contract Studio and also API, currently in private beta, not available to the public. And the problems we want to solve here, firstly, smart contract development can be a bit complex, right? And here there is a need also to master the script library. Also, it's hard to find enterprise-grade smart contracts, compliant, audited, with 24/7 support. So it's our ambitions to solve that. And same here, we have an approach with API and front ends. And globally, we want to deliver and to deliver to our community turnkey smart contracts for predefined use cases. For now, we have only one smart contract template, which is a crowdfunding template. But obviously, that's just a start. And then we want to continue by adding more templates like permission token template, permission voting, multi-sig, and so on and so on. Those products, Smart Contract Studio API and also Token Studio API, are still early stage, and we are continuing developing them as we speak. Some snapshots of the Smart Contract Studio. The front end, you can see them here, possibility to select a template and then to input the parameters for the smart contracts, and then to deploy it and sign the deployment of the smart contract. The browser wallets. So here problems we're trying to solve. Firstly, without the browser wallet, it's going to be complicated to interact with the dApp, right? And we want the BSV ecosystem to thrive, and we want more dApps to be created, and we want users to interact with those dApps. So it's key to have a browser wallet to do that. It's also hard to find a wallet compatible with all token protocols, and that's our approach. With the Token Studio, we want to be token agnostic, and it will be the same for the wallet. We want to be compatible with many token protocols, so that it's not a problem to use all kind of tokens. So the features of our wallet today, the possibility to create multiple BSV wallets, mainnet and testnet, receive and send BSV, receive and send some tokens. For now, it's stats. We'll be adding 1 sat ordinals. The possibility to display an NFT as well, and to see the transaction history from the wallets. It's that here, some snapshots of the new version. This is the V2 that is going to be deployed in less than 2 weeks. And yeah, I will hand over to Mattia right now for vision on what's on chain. Thank you.
Thanks, Aurélien. So hi, everyone. I'm Mattia. I'm the product manager on What's on Chain, as Aurélien mentioned earlier. Briefly, the main thing that we want to highlight for What's on Chain as both the website, Blockchain Explorer, and the API is that What's on Chain is running on fully independent infrastructure. So we run our own nodes independent from TAAL. They're very well connected on the network. So almost anything that happens on the network reaches our nodes pretty quickly. So you can basically be sure that we know what's on chain. People, of course, utilize this to verify that their transactions have ended up on the chain, and many other things. Some of the main features and benefits are, of course, our API, which enables developers to build applications and wallets and many other things on top of our services. And the API offers from the basics of access to blocks, transactions, etc., to some additional info, for example, the UTXO API, information on spent transactions, but also some network level stats and insights, and many others. On the website, and you will actually see a demo, like Aurélien mentioned a bit later, of our product, mainly the website, but also some mention on the of the API. The website offers a live view of incoming blocks and transactions. You can easily track which, for example, outputs were spent. You can look at the mempool status. So a very broad overview of what's happening on the network right now, but you can also go into detail as much as you want through addresses, script hashes, and so on. We also have a suite of stats and metrics that look at both the last 24 hours, but also some time series data on different aspects of the network, where you can go back in time, a week, a month, a few months, and so on. This is very useful to see kind of what trends are happening on the network, what applications are broadcasting transactions on the network, or protocols, and so on. And additionally, we provide a fully fledged plugin platform where application developers can build their own app-specific content that can then be presented on What's on Chain. This can help with decoding and presenting transaction contents, or anything else that your users might find useful and interesting to view directly on What's on Chain. As previously mentioned, in the last month, we've seen about 93 million API requests, and we are, in terms of the TAAL services, like Aurélien mentioned, the most used suite of services, and we have a very active community on Telegram and on Twitter. We can provide links to these later as well for people to follow us. We publish everything we've shipped, and we welcome feedback from the developers. We love the two-way communication with our customers in terms of feature requests, feedback, and so on. Yes, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mattia. Let's move on to transaction processing with Oli.
Good. Yeah, What's on Chain is basically my homepage. It's a very needed tool in the ecosystem. Anyway, my name is Ole, head of engineering at TAAL. I'm going to dive into some transaction broadcasting initially, and then go over a few of the other services that TAAL provides, where this shows you the current situation. I'll talk a little bit more about the future later on. At the moment, TAAL provides TAPI, TAAL API endpoints, and we have an instance running of MAPI. MAPI is the current industry standard of submitting transactions, taking care of the lifecycle, getting your callbacks, all of the kind of stuff. It works. We have it running. It has bottlenecks, limitation scalings, which is why I'll go into the future later. At the moment, MAPI, TAPI, we have, for the TAPI side of things, we have a couple of broadcast endpoints. One of those supports binary format, which is very useful for large, extremely large batches of transactions, which could help you get through them. An important note here is that these infrastructures connected directly to our mining nodes. So this is the fastest path to get your transaction onto the chain. Even though we have a direct connection to what's on chain and other nodes in the network, peer-to-peer is an eventually consistent network. You might have messages lost, it might need to be rebroadcast. There's a couple of things that need to take care of, but the MAPI, TAPI interfaces are the fastest way to get your transaction mined. And I'm going to do my finger thing, and then Aurelian can move to the next slide, where this shows you the API endpoints, JSON RPC. Everyone knows this. If you're coming from the old world where you had your own BSV node and you were sending raw transactions over an RPC interface, this is like a simplified version to be able to interact with the blockchain. Send your transactions. All of this documentation is in our public-facing documentation. These are just snapshots from that. And I'll go over that also a little bit later. And with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future, where you might have had a presentation from ARC. I'm actually not quite sure what the status is of there. But ARC is the next generation transaction processing broadcasting system. It has been commissioned by the BSV Association, but TAAL is currently the main contributor to the code base. ARC works a little bit differently compared to MAPI and some of the other products, where ARC hooks into the peer-to-peer network to broadcast the transactions instead of relying on RPC interface to the nodes. And this is going to be very important in the new world where we have Terranode and we no longer have RPC interfaces, and you need to interact with the network differently. The whole idea of ARC, and what you can also see from this picture, before you continue, is that companies will be able to self-host this as well. It is not yet there yet. There is currently a limitation in the network where ARC participates on the peer-to-peer network, but because it's not a full node, it eventually will get blacklisted, and there's some situations that happen there. So at the moment, ARC needs a set of nodes which has it whitelisted, so it can always continue broadcasting. So this is why at the moment only miners can basically host this. But the vision for the product is that companies will be able to self-host this in the future, broadcast their own transactions, have a history of the transactions they broadcast with Merkle paths and all the stuff that comes with that. And this picture shows you that peer-to-peer self-hosted world where we're moving towards in the future, where you have a phone, does a payment to another phone, directly peer-to-peer, doesn't even go over the network. The phone will then access an ARC to make sure the transaction get broadcast across the network. ARC takes care of the life cycle of the transaction, whether it's mined, rejected, whatever else can happen there. It's an open source project. You can just look at the documentation right now to see like the transaction states, the life cycle, and how all of that works together. But I'm not going to go into the details today. If you go to the next slide, then it has a very similar simplified JSON interface that developers can use, submit transactions, get transaction status. It has continually improving documentation, where because it's an open source project, we welcome contributors, but at the moment it's just TAAL adding to it, but there are going to be more people added in the future. GorillaPool is also hosting their own instance of ARC and providing feedback with how that works. It's a very valuable tool. And with that, I want to talk a little bit about Mark, the minor version of ARC, and we're internally calling it Mark, just a funny name, where ARC can be self-hosted. And if you send 10 transactions a second, or 1,000 transactions per second, you can run it on your own box. But as a miner, we want to provide this service. We believe ARC is the future of transaction broadcasting. We believe it's more stable, more scalable than MAPI, TAPI, all of those things. So we are working on the miner version of ARC, which will still be open source. Everything will be in there, but our implementation will, of course, be specific to our infrastructure and our needs. And our needs are millions of transactions per second is our goal that we need to support. For that, you need this. You need Kubernetes. This is just a quick snapshot of one of our test instances that we have, where we have Metamorph, which is one of the internal services of Arc. We have X amount of them running. And depending on needs, how many transactions are coming in, we can have one container running or 10,000 containers running. That's the goal where we want to go towards, so that we can have an infinitely scalable transaction broadcaster connected to the network. Next slide, please. Way too complex to show now, but just to give you a sense of the difference between a self-hosted Arc, how that would work, and a miner hosted Arc, containerized, much larger scale, what kind of extra services will be needed, what kind of extra paths would be needed, and what kind of setup would that be. That's the transaction broadcasting side of things, where again, we're coming from Tapi-Mapi. We believe the future is Arc, and we are contributing highly to that and hosting it and working on it to get it to a place where every developer can use it and trust Arc to take care of the lifecycle of his or her transaction. But TAAL has many other offerings. This is TAAL Client, which is a desktop application that you download, that you install, that you run on your own computer, and with which you can write data to the blockchain without needing BSV. And that's maybe the key here. So whenever you use TAAL Client to submit a transaction to the network, there's a TAAL Client Treasury, which loads it up with BSV and makes sure the transaction goes through. Of course, it's not free. Of course, there's an API key protection around this. And like Aurelien mentioned, you can go to the TAAL platform, you can purchase products, you can purchase API keys with X amount of requests that you can take and use this TAAL client. But it is the easiest, friendliest interface to submit data to the chain. That can be a picture or whatever else you want to put on chain. And if you go to the next slide, once you download it, run it on your own computer, you can open a web interface into TAAL client. You can see the history of the transactions you've submitted. That link that you see, the ID link, takes you straight to what's on chain to be able to validate that it's actually on the network. What's on chain can decode images, so you can see if you upload an image, you can easily see it in what's on chain. And with that, there's a couple of use cases that we're currently thinking of. Notarization, audit trails, event tracking. Very easy to add this to your systems, have transactions sent on chain with a certain, so that the blockchain is immutable and it's timestamped. And there's a lot of value in that you can prove at this point in time, this file or this hash of the file, what you would normally do, was on chain, and I can prove that it comes through me, through my keys. And the last step is the TAAL client also has an API. So as a developer, you don't really clicking in a visual application. You want just to have an endpoint. Same thing. You can submit any file. You get a transaction ID back. We take care of the BSV to be able to upload this to the network. And then everybody is happy. Cool. That was the developer services. But we also have infrastructure services. This is a slightly different topic. Like I said, the future is Arc. The future is Terranode. Terranode is going to be inexpensive to run. If you look at the network, it's going to be 1 million transactions per second or 1 billion transactions per second where we want to move towards. This will be less relevant, but these are current offerings. So I want to quickly go over what we can provide. BSV Lite. It's another desktop application. You download it, you install it. Once you have it running, you configure it with a TAAL API key, and then you basically have access to a mini node. You can do the same RPC calls that you would do on a normal node with some limitations. We found out that retrieving entire blocks, for example, is not allowed through BSV Lite because it bottlenecks. It basically locks up the entire node, and then we can't use it for mining. So there's a few limitations that we put in place, but for other statistics that you wouldn't normally get from a node, you can just use BSV Lite as a replacement for that. You can get the ZMQ messages, mempool access, everything you need, except downloading the entire block. Last thing I want to mention, Node as a service. Nodes are expensive to run. They need to be maintained, upgraded, security. You need people, DevOps, to manage these. Not everyone has this, but there are companies that do still require nodes. If you're, in theory, you should be architecturing your application to not require a node. But at the moment, there's still a lot of legacy setup where you still require a full node to be able to index the entire chain, like What's on Chain does. So if you're a blockchain explorer, you will need this, but normally don't do that. It's very hard to do. But we do provide Node as a service to a limited set of clients. This is not something we dish out easily. And like I said, these are expensive to host, to run, to manage. But it is an offering that we have in case of very specific needs from any clients. And then the last one, resources. That's where you need to go. docs.taal.com. It has everything we just spoke about, including What's on Chain. So it's the main entry point for everything developer related for TAAL. And with that, pass it back.
Thank you, everyone. So let's move on to Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions if you have.
Is MAPI still working?
MAPI is still working. You can use it, it's fine, but it will not work in a million transactions per second world. There are some bottlenecks with how it's set up and how it's developed, but it's completely fine. You can use it, but it is highly node dependent. So you need to access, it works best if you have access to a node.
And also maybe the idea in the future, in the near future, is to move from MAPI to ARC. That's also what has been presented by Oli.
Yeah, so that we already have a few clients which are using ARC, testing it for us. ARC is officially in public beta, I believe. The idea is to get it into production by the end of the year, because there's been a large need from various clients and companies in the ecosystem to be able to send out all their transactions. And ARC is the path forward in that case.
Some weekends ago, there was a stress test, and there were a lot of problems with MAPI. I had to start to run my service, and that's because of the stress test. Because I thought that you had changed ARC. You have withdrawn MAPI, and I suppose that a lot of people thinks about the same, that you disconnected MAPI and you are only working with ARC, and maybe you should say to everybody whether for how long MAPI will still be working, for 1 month, 3 months, or have a timeline to know when do we have to change from MAPI to ARC. That's my question.
Very good question. The network test, it mostly impacted the nodes. And the nodes, MAPI is highly dependent on the nodes. So MAPI was also affected, TAPI was affected. The specific test they did last time was related to increasing the UTXO set. That brought a whole new set of bottlenecks inside the node. TAAL is mitigating with more hardware, more SSDs, all that kind of stuff, but it's all band-aids for the future. For the timeline, like I said, ARC is supposed to be production ready by the end of the year, after which they will start communicating, hey, you start considering to use this. There is no strict timeline for deprecating MAPI. I think we'll keep it as long as it still functions. There is no official communication that is going to be deprecated, but it's just that most of the development effort is being spent on ARC, because that's the most stable way forward. So for example, in the network test, ARC was fine. It has a list of transactions. If it didn't go through, it checks it every couple of minutes and it rebroadcasts until the nodes finally pick it up and take care of it and make sure it's mined. That's the key differentiator between ARC and MAPI.
Yeah, maybe just to add, my name is Thomas from the Bitcoin Association. So we commissioned TAAL to develop the open source version of Arc at the Bitcoin station. I'm going to cover the timeline tomorrow, but just to answer quickly to your question, the roadmap of Arc and MAPI is that today Arc is in public beta. We should move Arc to the production environment by the end of the year, so end of December. So today we are encouraging application builder to go to TAAL and GorillaPool and to test Arc, right, and to provide feedback because it's a public beta. Starting from January, we will encourage people to shift from MAPI to Arc, as MAPI will be decommissioned along the year. The reason why it will be decommissioned, when I say decommission, is that BA won't fund anymore the open source development of MAPI. The reason behind that is that MAPI won't be aligned with Terranode. So as we're going to release Terranode by the end of next year, we're going to encourage people to shift from MAPI to Arc, because through Arc, you will be able to connect to Overlay Node and Terranode. So the timeline is public beta until the end of the year, production starting from January, between January and March, shifting from MAPI to Arc, and then progressively from March and onward, using only MAPI. That's the current state. Of course, let's fine-tune the roadmap, but just to provide more
information, I think it's important that should be publicly available on the Bitcoin Extension website of Arc and also on GitHub, because you go to GitHub and you don't read anything about that. You don't know who asked you. I tried to, I downloaded the client, because Arc has got two parts, server part and the client part. I tried both of them, but client, in the first line, there was a typo, and you couldn't even compile it. And also after changing that, I found some errors that I cannot run the client by now.
Maybe I don't know some context there, because I understand that.
First, you're right. I need some
in a beta, I understand, but as a user, I receive feedback.
Exactly.
From the user.
Exactly.
And there's no. That's what I talked to Ricardo. Should be a way to communicate directly with you or with 2 or 3 people in the Bitcoin Association or the programmers, or because us, the developers, can connect directly with them.
So first, you're right, because we already notified that now we should publish publicly the roadmap, so that's ongoing. We're going to do it. Okay. In terms of communication, so if you have some operational discussion, you can reach out to the TAAL Discord channel and the Arc sub-channel and the GorillaPool Discord channel, because you have to use miners Arc. If you want to communicate with the BA, you go to the BA Arc Discord channel and you communicate directly with Discord. Discord.
I didn't know.
So there are a lot of things going on, and we are trying to move.
There should be a link in the GitHub website, in the Bitcoin Association website, a link to where can we contact you.
So great feedback. Thank you.
We have a clear miscommunication problem, because even for BSB current companies like Handcash, like 3 weeks ago, 1 month ago, we had the developers like crazy. They didn't know where to go to ask questions, like Telegram channel, Discord. So I think we need to work in a really better communication channel, even for the insiders, for the BSB companies. So you can imagine for someone from outside.
Good. And thanks for the feedback. And that's why we are here today to gather this kind of feedback. So thanks.
I'll provide a little bit more context there, because like you said, the typo that's in the library, that was actually one of the feedback that we received quite early. But Arc, as we are hosting it, is just 8 JSON RPC endpoints. You don't need to use the actual library. You can just go to the TAAL documentation, access Arc, post there as a regular JSON RPC request. But it is feedback that we already received that is being worked on. The whole JavaScript libraries space is a bigger project that Thomas will hopefully go into maybe today or tomorrow. There's lots of stuff happening there to improve, professionalize the libraries and the communication around them. And the last thing I want to mention is that BA might be decommissioning MAPI and the development of MAPI, but that doesn't mean that TAAL stops hosting MAPI. So TAAL's timeline will be a little bit different than BA's timeline. As long as we still have users in MAPI with the paying TAPI API key, they can still keep using it as long as it functions. And that is highly node and network dependent. So maybe that's a little bit of extra context there. And then the one thing I heard you also mention, Handcash. Handcash is one of those companies that's recently started fully testing ARC, and they're sending out their transactions over multiple ARCs and multiple MAPI instances just to be able to verify the differences and verify how that all operates.
Hello, my name is Thomas. Thanks for the presentation. And I wanted to ask about WebSockets. And I've seen that you got WebSockets on beta. And if there's like a timeline, or it's going to be possible to filter by tags, for example. Like there's normally we go SPV, but there's some protocols that are federated, no, are open to interact. So maybe, for example, some person can make a user interface for a protocol and wants to have access to these transactions maybe in real time. Is that on the path for you guys?
That is something for probably Aurelian to consider, where we don't offer any direct WebSocket access. So that BSV Lite has a SetMQ interface and all that stuff. But the thing is that Twitter's Firehose was a thing in the past where it just hosed in all the messages. You could do whatever you want with it, but it grew too big. That same is going to happen here. So what we could probably offer, and we don't offer it right now, but what is a use case based on this, what we could start offering is a WebSocket interface into filtered or tagged specific transactions. I think similar to what GorillaPool is doing with the Jungle Bus, where you can have subscriptions on data types or transaction types and only get feedback on those. At the moment, TAAL has these things internally. They're used in a couple of systems, but they're not exposed as APIs. And that's something we could consider.
I think that's probably, you mentioned, just adding one thing there. You mentioned about that it's in beta, but that's probably you're talking about the What's on Chain API, because What's on Chain does provide filtered WebSockets. But it doesn't provide, as you said, based on a tag. And that's where we want to, instead of just publishing every tags and creating a socket for every tag, we prefer, if people need it, then say, this is my tag, or this is our tag which we need, or this is our regular expression. So we'd like to know the interest, what exactly you want to know. So we put a dedicated, channel for you for that one. And once that's established, we have all the infrastructure there. So once that's established, then it will be working for you, even during the load times or failovers.
Hello, this is Augusto. Thank you for all. I want to ask if the fee is a policy, an old policy, if it can be changed, and if it's a good thing to do, to ask first for the policy, and then after it, and after being sure that the fee is 1 SAT kilo KB, then propagate the transaction.
Good question. In practice, you should always ask for the fee policy first, have that cached somewhere. You don't need to hammer the servers for those, but it's good to always get that information. TAAL has the position currently that we're sticking to 1 SAT per kilobyte. But for example, during the last network congestion, what happened because of the bytetails testing, GorillaPool decided to increase their fee. So if you were using their services, your transactions might not be going through. We stuck with 1 SAT per kilobyte. That is a current strategic decision. So we don't expect it to change, but as a developer, it should be the best practice to make sure that you have the fee policy retrieved and cached somehow for an X amount of time, because it can change. But at the moment, for the next foreseeable future, it will probably not change. But if something happens in the next couple of months and the network gets highly congested and the nodes are falling over, then what TAAL could do is increase the fee to try and lower the activity and make sure everything's still alive. So you should always, best practice, retrieve that fee.
I agree. Maybe just commenting that having low fees right now is a way to foster enable user adoption. And as Oli said, you can change over time depending on the network congestion and so on. But yeah, that for now, that's a strategic approach.
Hello again. Regarding the fees, when ARC becomes in production, how do we ask to the network which are the fees of each node of the network? Because with Arc we only have a blinded way to connect to the network, but I don't know if I can connect directly with TAAL and with Gorilla and the other nodes.
Very good question. It is something that hasn't been built yet in Arc. So when you currently, the miner hosted version, the GorillaPool and the TAAL version, they can provide you a fee. Makes sense. If you have your own self-hosted open source Arc in the future, then you will need to gather that fee from existing miners. And that's a functionality that doesn't exist yet, but will be added to Arc open source feature probably in the near future. But the current priority is on the miner version of Arc, and the miner version of Arc does know what the fee policy is of the nodes that it's connected to. So the TAAL Arc will be able to provide you a fee policy.
Is there some limitation in what's on chain calls, limited to 3 per second? Is there any plan to change that or to upgrade that?
Well, the 3 per second limit is for free usage, but there is already package in there. If you go on the platform, there is a link in our documentation how to get there, and there you have to pay for it if you want to go to 10 requests per second or 20 or even bigger than that. So it's possible. There are ways to do it, but yes, the free limit is 3 requests per second.
Just to add to that, as Mo said, these API keys are available on the TAAL platform as part of the rest of the TAAL services. So that's on a separate website than what's on chain, right? But you can access it through our documentation as well.
There is a false myth about the impossibility to do smart contracts on Bitcoin. But it's just a myth. Bitcoin protocol uses scripts to do it.